Right then, gang, let's do it. So, for today, the kind of agenda we're going to run through, we're going to talk a little bit about the past week's training and then what the build-up for the ATHX Finals are going to be. Kind of weaknesses and strengths, and then what we're going to build off of. And then we're going to go into a little bit of a book update. Got hopefully quite a big book update, and then we're going to just... Our main bit for today is going to be looking at, again, another modern wisdom podcast, but this time with Sam Sulek. So kind of bridging the gap between the two things and going to hopefully see if we can kind of dissect the little battle between bro science and the science-based community. But we'll see. We'll see which side I end up falling on. The week just gone worth of training went very, very well. So every kind of 4 to 5 weeks, I'll do a test week, and I use that as like a little bit of a deload as well. So if you think of deloads traditionally, what tends to happen with a deload is you peak up your training. So if you think of a block of 4 weeks, the normal way it works is week 1 loads are lower, week 2 they're like say medium middle, week 3 they're high loads, and then week 4 you deload, so you drop everything back down. So over that time, we're creeping up over those 3 weeks. Load and volume can both go up, and then we drop volume. 9 times out of 10 we keep intensity, so keep weight reasonably high, and then that acts as a traditional deload. The way that I like to do it is because your deload for the majority of people needs to be a reduction in volume, because the volume is going to be the thing which is going to drive the main part of the fatigue. So the way that I like to do it is to test everything on my 4th week. So I have basically 3 weeks of building up. We have a test week, but that test week works as like a pseudo deload, and that's what we had on this week. So some of the lifts, let me mute everything so you don't get it coming up through, but the main things that is we're obviously preparing for ATHX. So we got our final invitations come through yesterday, which is really cool. So 6th of December, which gives us like 5 weeks. My strengths are strength. My weaknesses is the Metcon, and me and Jasper got a little bet to see who can get further on the endurance component. So again, ATHX is going to be, we're looking for a 3 rep max pull up. So at this block I'm in at the moment, 5 reps was what we were building up over, so 30 kilos for 5 reps. When we did the ATHX comp back in August, I got 3 reps at 40. So if we could push that up by 5 kilos, that'd be really, really cool. We looked at like the results from the Berlin one, and James Spragg, which is a CrossFit athlete, he got, I think their total was something like 610, 609 on the strength, and our total was 530. So there is just a difference, but things like that, when you look across the scoreboards and where you need to come, if you could place 5th across everything, then you probably are going to be up there, because the same thing with the point systems is the point systems work out as everything's added up. So whatever place you get in each element is the amount of points you get. So the lowest total points is the one who wins. So this peak week for a lot of my bigger lifts, so 5 rep max pull up, a 8 rep max high bar, so 170 kilos for that. That's pretty cool. That puts me at, I like working this out just because it makes me feel better more than anything. And then I actually did 11 reps at the 70 kilos for the overhead press. Tempo deadlift, so we're starting to bring that back a little bit. And the reason we're bringing that back, in January I'm going to do a powerlifting comp. So we've got the ATHX comp in December, and then January going to do a powerlifting comp, and it's somewhere around June. I found like a novices, like a first timers bodybuilding comp that I'm going to do. So the timeline should work out pretty well. Do that hopefully, I think it's in June. And then I've got a couple of months to just get a little bit of fitness to see if we can qualify again for some kind of finals on the ATHX, so we'll see. That's the calendar already planned out for next year. But yeah, tempo deadlifts going pretty well. So hopefully you can start to pull back like 230 plus. Powerlifting comp, the ideal for me would be to squat 250, deadlift 260, bench 150. That would be the goal, because that gives me a 660 total, and I've been after a 660 total since I started. Back squat, 6 rep max, 206. Yeah. And then we just ignore the bench because that's rubbish. But one of the things I like doing is when the 6 rep max on the back squat puts me at like a 248 predicted 1RM, which is nice because that can go up again then when we get towards ATHX. And then I got 8 weeks to peak for the powerlifting comp, so that'd be fun. Overall out of 10 this week, I'd probably say like a 9, solid 9. Some things have been pretty good this week, I'd say. It's been quite a nice week, I must admit. Very lovely day today. Very wholesome Sunday. Very wholesome week altogether, I would say. And yeah, and like thinking back across this week, so one of the things we're going to go into later on is the marshmallow test. And the marshmallow test is a simulation of kind of delayed gratification. So if you think of in life, you have a lot of decisions to make. So say you're trying to diet, or say you've got a goal that you're chasing, and you have the choice whether to diet and to continue to chase that goal to achieve that, or you can eat the food that's in front of you right now. So you can go off, you can go and have drinks, go and eat out and do all that, get this instant kind of hit, this instant gratification, or you can delay it and you can not take the thing now so you get the results in the future. It's a bit like saving money. It's a bit like what the test itself, the marshmallow test, is being, there's one marshmallow here, and if you don't eat that, then you get a bag of marshmallows. And people who are good with delayed gratification are the ones that are most successful. So part of that means that you have to choose in certain occasions when you have a goal that you're trying to chase to sacrifice certain things in the present. And that always the sacrifice of things in the present for the future gain. And the ones that do that the best are the most successful. That and like kind of the two other traits, which are a constant fear of not being good enough and at the same time feeling like they're better than everyone else and deserve more than everyone else. And I think there's something within the not feeling good enough but believing that they should have the things, which is the drive, and then the delayed gratification is kind of like that final hit to make sure that, well, you may want the things and you may have something you're running towards, that I deserve this. You may have something you're running from, which is that feeling of not being good enough. But for you to actually achieve it will take some kind of, you have to be able to not get rewards for a long period of time when doing something in order to then achieve the thing that you're trying to get. It's the whole same thing with when we do stuff like this and do things on these streams. It's kind of like, if you look, the Modern Wisdom podcast we're going to look at, for something like 3 years, like there was like no listeners. And you just keep going and going and going and going. And now it's probably the biggest podcast out there, like in kind of parallel with Joe Rogan. And it's just, there is something within success that just comes from do the thing without getting results, do the thing without getting results, do the actions over everything. So, I mean, we've kind of touched on that marshmallow test already, but that is practically what it is. And I do think, again, over this week, for example, this week's been a real test for me in that, which is there are things that I've wanted to do every evening that I finish work, and I've had the choice of, do I do that thing, or do I do what I said I was going to do and do the actions and do the work that's going to build the future? It's kind of like you have two options, which is you enjoy the present and sacrifice a bit of the future, or you sacrifice some of the present for the future gain. And it's all a bet, basically. It's all a bet on what you think is going to happen, and it's all a bet, and the biggest bet, which is betting on yourself, which is kind of why it's important to do the actions that you said you were going to do. Because for you to bet on yourself, again, we speak about this a lot, which is like building trust within yourself, because that builds confidence. The only way you build trust within yourself is to say you're going to do something and do the thing. So this week has been a massive test for me to be like, I said I'm going to do this thing, I need to do that thing. And it's kind of, even when you don't want to. And that's part of the discipline side of it, which is like, discipline comes from that, you know. Discipline comes from sticking to what you said you were going to do, and that's where you show like, well, how disciplined are you? So yeah, it's been like, it's always been something I think is actually way more difficult than people give credit for, which is there are so many things I would rather be doing than working a lot of the time, but you just have to pay. You have to pay it down sometimes. So you have to pay it down either now or you pay it down in the future. And like the conversation I've had in the past, which is if I pay it down now, I do not have to pay it down in the future. Like I can get all of the things I need to do out of the way. It's kind of like people that like when you're young, do the studying now so you don't have to do it later. And that's because like your past idiot self's done that. Like the person you no longer are has done all that work for you. And it's kind of like if you do that now, your future self just benefits. But along the same lines as that, spoke about it before, is that there is a massive contrast or a massive butting of heads with connection and competency. So being, if you want to get good at something, a lot of the time the thing you're sacrificing is connection. So for you to study, for you to learn, for you to gain the skills and the knowledge you need to gain, you need to focus on something and learn something. And that a lot of the time kind of means that you sacrifice connection. And that sacrificing connection can be something which is quite difficult, which is why like this week I've actually managed to put some emphasis on both, which is I suppose an actual work-life balance, which is do the thing you said you were going to do from a work perspective, but then enjoy connection and time with people on other occasions. So like Friday, for example, really busy Fridays worth of work, but then met a friend for food afterwards, and then went out with some friends to watch some rugby after that. And then it's like Saturday morning, woke up and can get back on with work, and then spent the whole weekend with friends and family again. It's just like, if you think about your mental health and think about what it is for you, which you struggle with, for me, it's always the same thing, which is you're not doing enough and you need to spend some time with people to kind of relax and to chill you out and to have some fun. And it's not even fun. It's kind of like, it's just the connection. It's to kind of create those relationships, because that's basically the thing we're after anyway. It's that whole thing of don't sacrifice the thing you want for the thing that's supposed to get it. So don't sacrifice connection with people and building a life with someone to do the thing that's supposed to give you that life. Like you have to incorporate both and understand that literally the human problem is that you cannot do everything and you have to just split it up. But yeah, overall, good week. We're going to go into the main section. So the main section is going to be just a little. I've not watched the video yet, so we're going to watch it again. We're going to find out what it's like together. And this is going to be Sam Sulek on the Modern Wisdom podcast. His opinion on science-based lifting. So let's have a look. Let's see what he has to say.
What do you make of the world of evidence-based lifting, science-based stuff at the moment?
I think there's people who are gimmicky about it and make it a thing because they know it's like, because an older person or an older guy who works out is going to stick to the basics that he know worked for him, which is, sweet. But, it's going to be harder for him to accept new ideas. So for a younger guy, it's kind of this like clout mentality of like, oh, I'm on the new wave train. But some of it's a little silly. I don't think
there's a video that going around at the moment of someone doing front delt training with their arm through like a foam roller. It's like if you can get your arm through a foam roller, you probably should not be given lifting advice. Is pretty much what
all of it is.
The argument
so
is.
I'm not. I would never. The point isn't exactly what they're doing, but a lot of the idea behind it, and it's kind of its own subculture, it's very like it's a weird elitism, because it's not like it's Chris Bumstead saying like this is the
mad thing with the science-based community with stuff like this. And it's not a dig, because so I subscribe to a thing called MASS, which is monthly application in strength sports. So they do studies, and I think the really good part about the MASS side of it, a lot of it's the nutrition stuff. I think the nutrition stuff on the MASS is great, because studies around nutrition is what helps us to get to the old adage of 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, or get into like the amount of studies on creatine and how to use it and loading and all of that type of stuff. Like without studies, you don't know those types of things. But when it comes to lifting, like you just have to go a lot of the time, I think the contrast within science-based lifting compared to like the bro science side of it, or at least just bodybuilders or meatheads, is meatheads. A lot of the time, the way that science-based lifters can kind of dismiss what people are saying is because most science-based lifters are natural. And because they're natural, they can just default and say, well, anyone who is bigger than me or anyone who is a meathead who is talking about this, all of their gains have come from gear. So like when you are someone who's natural, the most of the time these types of people are trying to find a different way or new way to be like, no, this is the thing which is going to help you. And like, to be honest with you, you just have to go where the evidence is, and evidence not necessarily being from a study or from science, but being from like, well, how do people who are the biggest, how do they train? And like, I always go off of I pretty much volume cycle to some degree from a muscle building perspective. So if you look at people like Trained by JP, which is like one top set and a back off with everything you do. So say you've got 6 different exercises for lower body for your quads. Well, there's a top set and a back off for each set, right? And that is like a traditional way of doing things. All that JP is doing is he's doing, say, 2 lower body sessions a week. He wants to hit somewhere between 12 to 20 sets of his lower body, and all he's doing is spreading that work over 2 sessions. And the way he's doing it is kind of the Dorian Yates style of basically, let's just go balls to the wall for a set, don't leave any reps in reserve and just send it. And then you've got like a science-based lifting community which come through and it's like, reps in reserve is really important, so you leave 1 rep in reserve in week 1, or 3 reps in reserve in week 1, 2 reps in reserve week 2, 1 rep in week 3, and then week 4 you peak and it's your most recoverable volume and things like that. And I do think that is super, super important. And I just think there is benefits to kind of shifting to and from the different amounts of volume. I think about this when you program for powerlifting, because program for powerlifting is very much as simple as when you are training for hypertrophy, you need more sets. When you're peaking, you need less sets. And the reason is because the weight and the load is so high that the amount of weight you're lifting, you cannot recover if the volume is too high. You simply get injured. And that's something that, like, I remember two or 3 years ago, I was like, oh, I don't think that's true. So I did high volume and high intensity and just got injured my back 3 times in a row. And it's like your body just cannot recover. So there is something within the top set and back off bit, but there is something in cycling your volume. So you do increase your volume during certain phases. And I just think that there is this massive, there's massive contrast with the science-based community, which is basically like, they're trying to find and squeeze as much juice out of it as possible. So I think that side of it is really positive, but dismissing anyone purely because they're on PEDs or things like that, it may not be the way to go, because you can miss out on some of the evidence. And I think because the evidence is there and it's just like, this person who obviously is stacked on a load of muscle, yes, they may be on PEDs, and yes, that may be enhancing their performance, but to some degree they still have to put the performance in to get the results. So the performance itself, like, there's something within that. Yes, you can recover better on PEDs, but there is something, you have to drive the adaptation in the first place. So like, looking at what people are doing who are actually ahead of you is always a really good shout. And looking at the way that natural bodybuilders who are really good and how they train, it's very, very similar to like the top level of like enhanced bodybuilders. So I think like, don't just dismiss the way someone trains because of a certain thing. I think this is the whole thing of like, for me, I always look at someone and I'm like, this person overall may have 10 different traits, and 8 of them may be bad, or 10 things that they do, and 8 of them may be bad, but there are 2 good things that I can learn from this person. And it's like, you can still learn a lesson if you don't just dismiss everything else just because of the one thing. So don't like throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Like, their whole thing is, this is right, you are wrong. And like, that sucks. That's not cool. And that's not even true, because there's so many people that get so many different results doing so many different things. Like, the idea that they're following is, if I'm not perfect, then there's no point. And it's getting back to like the conditioning of preschool, middle school, high school, college. You know, I want to get a degree so I know I can get a job. I want to know it's going to work. And that's the demand of being able to explain it with studies, because, you know, going into the gym at all is kind of uncomfortable for the non-beginner, of any age, where it's, you've never worked out before. It's always like, oh, what are people going to watch me working out? I've never done it. I'm uncomfortable because I've never actually gotten experience doing it. Like, do I need to get one of my buddies who works out to bring me to kind of
And I suppose that's the thing. That's going off of like the confidence side of it. So if you think of confidence being you have proof that you've done the thing that you said you were going to do. So when you go into training, you don't have confidence within what you're doing. Like, is the thing that I'm about to do actually going to help me get my goals? You don't know, right? You have no idea. Pulling on studies is going to be a form of confidence because it's like, well, there's this study which shows this thing, so I can do that and have some confidence that this is going to work. Whereas if you go in and just try and figure it out, you may not really know. But I think this is where kind of understanding the principles of what you're trying to get. If you're trying to build muscle over time, you have to get stronger because being stronger is the biggest indication that you are going to be building more muscle.
Coach me. Well, then they're going to know that he's coached. Like it's something where it does have an inflated kind of situation. You don't get nervous about going into a freaking Starbucks, but the gym is a little different because it has that physicality. So for them to, just think like, okay, this is actually the solution because this is perfect and this will work. It's a snake oil of an idea instead of a product. Because
What do you mean there?
Because the convincing point is that if you do it just like how we're saying to do it, we can guarantee that it will work for you. When really, I think the best guys who work out and lift, just what you call the best lifters, would be the ones who actually, get their hands on their own wheel and learn it for themselves. And then they get a deeper understanding. Because I could read a book about like, uh, you know, let's say for some reason I was raised in captivity, and I read a book that was like How to Act Normal. As much as I could read it, it would never translate to actually being a regular guy, because you have to like do these things.
My mic was muted for that whole bit, wasn't it? Because I was eating. So we're going to go back through that. This is the whole point of
To learn them, like it's a different.
we're going to pull up. We're going to pull up. Go
When
again.
really, I think the best guys who work out and lift, just what you call the best lifters, would be the ones who actually, get their hands on their own wheel and learn it for themselves.
Yeah. So this is the thing of, for me, when it comes to my coaching over the past couple of years, I've always written my own program. So I've written my own program from the very start. And the reason I've written my own program from the very start is because, and this is the same reason why I haven't taken any PDs, is because I want to be able to, with confidence, say that the thing that I'm giving advice on to my clients, either be it online or in person, is because I've done it myself. And I've got this really big stack of proof underneath me, because I've taken something which I've learned, because you learn in three different ways, or I think you embed knowledge into yourself best in three different ways, which is learn it theoretically, learn it then practically, so apply it to yourself, and then teach it to someone. I think like if you can teach the thing you've learned to someone, you're going to embed that knowledge. But the first two steps is learn the thing you're trying to learn, watching someone and how they train, reading a study, taking the most general kind of agreed upon knowledge and then applying it to yourself or applying it to one or two clients, and then you start to build out this comfort zone. So like when you comes to imposter syndrome, which is what I was talking about just a second ago, which is most people will be like, I have imposter syndrome when I step up to the next level. Because if I think about when I was coaching for the first 4 years, I had imposter syndrome because I was like, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, and I'm afraid that people are gonna kind of see through that. It's like I didn't know what I was doing because I just didn't know what I was doing, not because I had imposter syndrome. If you think about it from a career standpoint, you jump up the ladder in your career, right? You jump from one job, you go up to the next job, and people are like, you might have imposter syndrome when you get to that next kind of step up. And that's not imposter syndrome, that's just you're learning what to do on that next bit. It's simply you just don't know what you're doing, and that's fine, because it's like you're learning. The one way to embed yourself to make sure that you don't feel like you're way out of your comfort zone is to know what you do know and to kind of run off of that. So if I look at all of my programming over the years, because I've just applied everything to myself, I've got this really big list of things that I really do know about how to train and what I do and things like that, and how to program for someone for a certain goal. So anytime I give advice, it comes from a already thought through place, you know?
And then they get a deeper understanding, because I could read a book about like, let's say for some reason I was raised in captivity, and I read a book that was like How to Act Normal. As much as I could read it, it would never translate to actually being a regular guy, because you have to like do these things to learn them. Like it's a different kind of experience, because the working out isn't something you can just say on paper. You have to actually become experienced from doing it, and then you'll be different in the future. So to say like, and even just to say something so blatantly, at least what I would consider at least ill advised of this is the perfect way to do anything, that's not true, man. Like you're just saying that.
How much of it?
And that's what I mean by coming back to principles, is like, what are the things that you just like default to? And this is what I always go back to, which is like, for you to be gaining muscle, you need to be eating like in a calorie surplus. You obviously need to eat high protein, and you need to be getting stronger, because gaining strength is your biggest indication. So it's like if you're doing those three things, your body weight's going up, your weight on the bar is going up, and you're eating a high protein diet, there's a big chance you're going to be building muscle. So it's just like, well, what's the principles? And then how do I do that? How do I apply that? And then you can obviously look at volume and total number of sets on a muscle group and things like that. But without you trying it yourself, there is just no one size fits all approach. You need to kind of figure out what works best for you.
Do you think is like uncertainty reduction?
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I think in a way it's a little bit bringing it down, like I talked about, either raising to the bar or like kind of coddling yourself and making it seem like less of a thing. If you bring it and you get serious, you say, okay, the gym is full of guys who really get serious. I'm going to do it, and I'm going. Or I'm going to do these things which people said is the perfect way to do it, and it's not. You don't have to go that hard, or you don't have to do that much. Like things like that, I feel is a lowering of the difficulty, but it's argued as an improvement of the efficiency.
And that's so the improvement of the efficiency thing. I do wonder if that's just kind of default into like, well, or kind of copping out to the fact of like, well, if I don't give it my all, I'm still going to get benefits. Because I think like having that as like a backstop, it's kind of like if you think of earnings or the amount of money you want to make, you have like keep the lights on money. So this is the amount of money I need to kind of keep the lights on and to pay my bills. You have the amount of money you need to kind of live the life you want to live, and then you got your bougie lifestyle. It's a bit like that. It's kind of like, well, I'm aiming for a bougie. I'm aiming to go balls to the wall when I train. And it's like, it's nice to have the backstop that, oh, well, if I do miss a couple of sets or I don't quite finish my workout, that I'm still probably going to get the benefits. Like, it's nice to know that, but the reduction in effort, I think gets away a little bit from kind of the old school style of training. And don't get me wrong, like, I think there's these two paths for a reason. I do think there is this, the harder like really trying to push yourself path, and then there's this reps and reserve model of just trying to be efficient with what you're doing, but also almost kind of taking out the art of it a little bit. Because I think if you watch someone like a big surprise for me was when I was watching Chris Bumstead training. He was in just a normal gym, and he was like, I normally go on this machine, but I'm going to go on this machine. And there was no real, it was like, there was no, it needs to be this. It's not that. It doesn't need to be one specific machine to do a specific thing. It wasn't so detailed. It was just like the boring stuff, the general stuff, over and over and over again, all the time.
See, but for me, I'm looking at that as though, like, do you hate working out? Like, if you hate working out, then you want a routine where it's like 1 set a day. Like the ideal, well, I guess the ideal would be 0 sets. Like in their world, it's, I wish there was a pill, like a real, where it's, you never have to work out again. And this is where my bias could come in, because it's not an objective, like I'm just adding to a conversation. Like I can't say anything completely objective, but from my perspective, like I like it in the gym. If a workout if I could do 20 sets and that was actually like pretty efficient and it worked, that's what I would do. But it's not, because that's like, I'm not chasing a maximum efficiency in a way. I'm half chasing like maximum enjoyment, because I like to be in the gym.
Yeah, I think that's a good, well, you've said yourself, you went from 25 sets, reduce that down because you were more efficient. That you, some could say you're updating your worldview. You have accumulated some evidence that has now changed and informed the way that you're going to show up in the gym. But I think there's definitely an argument to be made that we are not equations. And I guess the slight addition to what you've said there is the assumption there is a science-based approach to lifting or an evidence-based approach to lifting causes a less enjoyable sort of routine. But some people may go in and say, like, just imagine for a second that the evidence-based routine happened to be more fun. I don't know how or why or whatever.
If for me it clicked as more fun, I'd have to do it.
Yes, then you'd be like, oh, wow, I've got both things. I've got both efficiency and I've got enjoyment coming through both. But yeah, if you're... Like, dude, I say it again. The era in which I sort of came up learning about lifting, we didn't... Is it 5-3-1? Is it 5x5? Is it German volume training? Is it drop sets? Is it rest pause? Is it myo sets? Is it myo... Like, you know, there's so many... And ultimately, when you look across what most people's points of failure are, for the normal lifter, for 99% of people that are going to the gym, which is still only, what, like 3% of the population or something? So it's a tiny amount of a tiny amount. The point of failure is compliance. And the reason for the failure in compliance is typically motivation and enjoyment. Before we continue, you are probably not...
Yeah, and I think that's is a nice sum up, I suppose, which is just like comes back to the multiple different ways that you can train, which is just decide and use the evidence and use what you see other people doing as your guide to kind of choose what you want to do. I think of this when creating the training app that I've got, which is, if I think of all of the different styles of training, you have functional fitness way of training, a bodybuilding way of training, powerlifting, power building, hybrid style of training. It's kind of like they're all different styles. But every person who comes to me trains in a different way for a different reason, and they like it for a different reason. So to me, it's like you can still apply the principles that you've learnt from the science-based community and apply them to the way that you like to train. And just know that there's going to be some level of trade-off, but also know that there are advice is given to the mean, to the average. So advice is given to the most amount of advice that is going to help the most amount of people, but none of that is specific to you and your lifestyle and the things that you enjoy. So it's always about being able to have some level of critical thinking and just go, there are all of this different bits of advice on how to gain muscle. You've got the Jay Cutler approach, which is a lot of volume. You've got the Dorian Yates approach, which is just one hard balls to the wall set. What do I prefer? Because if both work, because both can work, which is the one which works for me? And I think that's part of this, is like the kind of bridge gap or the caveat of science-based lifting versus just the bro science or the meathead way of lifting, I think reduces people to either one of two camps. And I think the middle ground is the intensity that comes from a meathead level of training, which is trying to work as hard as you can, but using science as your guide and proof that this is probably the way to go. So when new information comes out, you take that, and that doesn't just completely wipe out everything you've been doing. You take that bit of knowledge, apply it to what you've learned, and then go carry on from there. And I think that's all I've done. And for me, it's kind of like if I take RPE for powerlifting and I take percentages work better for me than RPE does, even though the whole of the powerlifting community will use RPE. So it's just about taking bits of information and going, well, what actually works for me? And then it's just like, well, I program off percentages because I know that this way works for me. And I know this way works for clients. So it's like, well, this is what I'm going to do. And it's just about reducing things down to be what's best for you. That's the end of that section. We kind of spoke about the marshmallow test. So pretty much going to go into goals for this week. So I got 2 weeks and then I've got a week off. And in that week off, I'm going to go through a lot of, hopefully, building out the part of the app which people can use for writing their own programs, but then following programs within the app. Going to build that out, I think, is going to be the main focus. So then people can pay reduced amount of money and still get access to my programming, still can get access to the training and all of the courses and stuff that we have within the app. So that's going to be a big focus, and then building out the book. The little book update is basically that I've finished all the checklists. So all of the 8 weeks checklists are done. We're now building out all of the information within the book. We've got probably 40% of the information done. So we're hopefully by the end of the year should have the first draft done. That's kind of the goal that we're looking at, which is pretty cool. So this week is a programming week for me. So the goal is just to finish all my programming by the weekend. So then on the weekend, I can finish the last bits I need to finish on the book and just make sure that I know where I'm heading as I go into next week, and just to get everything ready. So when I have that week off, and the week off is a week off of like in-person coaching, so I can focus on all this other stuff. It's not a normal week off, though I will be having a nice little weekend away somewhere, which would be nice. So yeah, little wrap up. Don't sacrifice the present too much for the future, but know that if you are trying to build something, there will come a time where you have to choose to not eat the marshmallow straight away, to kind of push the marshmallow to the weekend if you need to, and then go from there.